Are you one of the 9 million Floridians living in a community managed by a property manager or HOA? If you've ever wondered what your rights are as a resident or what your role is as a volunteer board member, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Condo Coaches, your resource for when your gated community starts to feel more like you're stuck behind bars, or when that guy next door decides that a hot pink Chevy on cinder blocks really sets the tone for the neighborhood. The Condo Coaches is brought to you by lmfunding.com. Find the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. And now your host, Johnny Torres.
Hello, everybody. It's the Condo Coaches radio show, special hurricane edition. We normally do this show Monday afternoons, but of course, because of Labor Day weekend, we actually pushed it back to Wednesday, and a lot has transpired since the last time we were here doing the show. Of course, that being the threatening, impending hurricane that is Irma, currently in the Caribbean. We are watching a lot of the footage here live as we're in the studio doing this show today. And we decided to kind of take a different approach to the way we normally do the Condo Coaches. If you're listening for the first time, we bring this show to you every week with experts, and we share our own expertise as we volunteer here to bring you education on how to run your community or homeowner association effectively, efficiently, and on budget. But again, this is something we've actually done a number of shows on, but it couldn't be more timely and more necessary for us to talk about not only what you should be doing in preparation for Hurricane Irma, but also even post-hurricane, because it seems like no matter where you live in the state, you are going to be affected by this storm. And so what are the things that you need to be ready to do once the storm passes, as it pertains to the effect that it's had on your home, whether it be a condo, single-family home, townhome, et cetera, et cetera. Joining me, as always, for every show, head coach Dean Akers. How are you, sir?
Johnny, I'm doing good, and I'm really, this is a big event happening. We're Facebook Live right now, and for the listeners that listen to us on the radio, they can hear us every normal Mondays, Facebook Live at 1 o'clock. But we're going to try to push this Facebook Live out and both the recordings out immensely for the next couple of days to the residents of Florida. But we have a great guest today. This is all about being ready. It's very serious, and you want to make sure I always call it, have your powder dry.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Fortunately, it seems that because of the unfortunate hurricane that hit Texas, Harvey, I think Floridians are much more on edge. I think not only that, I think there are lots of memes going around right now. Just to kind of
hold my beer.
Yeah, exactly. The hold my beer meme is a great one, and also the fact that Floridians like myself, who've lived here, pretty much my entire life, we know that anything above a 3, now you got to start paying attention. And it's serious business, and this isn't anything to mess around with. I mean, typically, again, having been from Miami, if you're in a 2, 3, you're throwing a hurricane party. You're just kind of hunkering down and waiting for the rain to blow over. But this storm is absolutely no joke.
I was a contractor years ago, and I was called by FEMA to go to the Hurricane Andrew site immediately afterwards. And I flew from Tampa, and I even let my sons know that live in Southeast Florida. You've got to take this very serious. I mean, it was like a war zone. There were buildings leveled, to the foundation. This wasn't windows blown out and some rainwater that seeped in.
Yeah.
So this is a big deal.
Well, not to get too off track, and I'll go into a little bit more of the details a little later on in the show, but there is a telethon that I am putting together to raise money for the hurricane victims in Houston. Again, we'll get into those details a little later on in the show, but I've been doing some television interviews about this telethon, and the one thing I tell people is, look, I lived through Hurricane Andrew. Now, fortunately, I was in the north end of the county. I had very minimal damage. It was mostly trees and, some light infrastructure damage and that sort of thing. But even today, 25 years later, something around that neighborhood, if you go down to the Homestead area in South Florida, you can still see remnants of the effects of Hurricane Andrew. That community has never fully recovered from that storm. If you go to New Orleans, I was in New Orleans a couple of years ago, that community still you can still see the devastation in many parts of New Orleans from Katrina. And Houston is going to be no different, if not worse, just because of the catastrophic damage of not just the hurricane, but the flooding that occurred there, and the fact that it's not only devastating to people's homes, we're talking about people's businesses, we're talking about the city's infrastructure. It's already in the hundreds of billions of dollars in terms of the damage and the amount of money that it's going to take to try to get back to some level of normalcy in Texas.
Totally.
All right, joining us again on this very topic is someone we had on the show before. We loved having her on before, and we, again, talked on this topic a little more broadly than we will today. We'll get into some specifics, but it's Kristi Demers-Crowell. Thank you so much. I remembered. Thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's a real good time for me to come on, and I appreciate the opportunity to share this information with condominium associations and homeowners all over the state of Florida. Right now, I've been working with folks out in Texas because I am a licensed attorney in the state of Texas as well, providing some free legal advice to some of the folks out there with the flooding. And unfortunately, out there, many folks did not have insurance. And so, the first thing that people need to know prior to a storm hitting, and at this point, Floridians should not panic in terms of the state of your insurance. And we talked about that a lot the last time I was on your show, what you can do to make sure you're properly insured. Today's not the time to get panicked about whether you're properly insured, because we're now in a situation where the storm is approaching, and we're not going to be able to get the kind of coverage and the kind of appraisals and things like that you might want to worry about later on.
Right.
This is going to be a wake-up call, I think, for a lot of associations and homeowners to maybe get things a little more shored up. But in the meantime, one of the first things people can do after a storm, regardless of whether they have insurance or not, is to contact FEMA and register with FEMA, because there's going to be a lot of aid available for people. Even if you have insurance, they want to make sure you've filed your insurance claims before you register with them. Okay. But resources are going to be real stretched thin. And so by doing that, you can, and you want to get in line as soon as possible, both on your insurance claims and with registering with FEMA, because it's first come, first serve.
Now, is that line essentially opened now since the governor declared a state of emergency? What starts that process? What kicks that off?
You need to register with FEMA once you have experienced a loss. If you need temporary housing assistance, those are going to be the first people that FEMA are trying to help and get you settled in somewhere. I mean, right now, everyone should be concerned with where are we going to be? And it's difficult to make those decisions right now. I'm making those decisions for my own family right now, because we're trying to figure out where that storm is going to go, and then determine, will we have enough time with traffic on the roads to get away by the time it's bearing down on us.
Yeah, they were already saying, I mean, here it is Wednesday, and they're saying that they're already starting to see increased traffic on the roadways heading north. And so they're even discouraging folks from heading north. Obviously, in Florida, there's not a lot of options, but, at some point, maybe you want to break west, head out to the Panhandle and maybe over to Alabama. They're basically saying everybody's heading to Georgia. So, Johnny, because, go ahead.
Right. No, I was just going to ask a question. I was just going to ask it. So, taking my Hobie cat and going west, not a good idea?
No, that might work. I think that'll be okay.
We'll have a new condo coach.
Be better. Yeah, exactly. I think you'd be better off than most in this situation. But I think most people's first instincts are like, all right, let's go to Georgia. Now, we don't know what the storm's going to do. It could head right up the east coast of Florida, and then if you're in Georgia, now you're in a position where you're going to have to evacuate all over again. But like you said, this is the time to make that decision. I think you probably have maybe another, 24, 48 hours to decide exactly what you're going to do, whether you're going to stay in town. I've seen some friends already, on a whim, get a plane ticket and just scoot out of town. That's okay too. And again, I think either way, I mean, the schools are going to be closed for the next 2 days in pretty much the entire state. And also, work for the most part, is going to be shut down for most people. And most of us can work remotely anyways nowadays, so it doesn't really matter. If you are able to do that, head over to the airport and take a flight to anywhere, then by all means.
Yeah, it's getting tougher and tougher, though. The plane flights are already booking up yesterday. But as an attorney who represents property owners, and I've been doing insurance claims and, unfortunately, lawsuits resulting from underpaid or wrongfully denied insurance claims for nearly 20 years now. So I've helped a lot of property owners after Hurricane Charlie, Francis, Jean, Ivan. Before you leave, the first thing you want to do, and you want to make sure you do this, is document the condition of your property.
Okay.
So whether you're a homeowner or if you're a condominium association, you are hopefully working with a property manager who has this on their radar.
Good.
And it's something you can do at the last minute if you
and
need
if you
to.
haven't heard from your property manager, absolutely get them on the phone, right? Reach out to them. You would hope that they'd be proactive. But again, everybody's kind of starting to get into panic mode, and so you want to make sure that you're getting your equal time with that property manager, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. And your unit owners, your even board members, just at the last minute, we all have smartphones now. You can videotape the condition of the exterior of your property and the condition of the interior of your property. There are apps that you can use, and I'm using one now that's free called Encircle.
Okay.
And,
very cool. Very cool.
Yeah,
app.
it's really neat. And it allows you to document by room.
Okay.
And take photographs, make notes.
Well, hold on. We'll get back to that in just a bit.
Great.
We've got less than a minute to go. We are talking Hurricane Irma today here on the Condo Coaches. Again, special edition episode. If you want to participate, watching this live on Facebook right now, make sure you send us your questions. We'll pass them on to head coach Dean Akers or our guest coach, Kristi Demers-Crowell, who's an attorney in the insurance space. Homeowners insurance, right? Is that the specialty?
Yes, and commercial property insurance,
perfect.
Businesses after hurricanes and fires and other types of loss.
All right, excellent. So we definitely want to see questions from you. You can also reach out to us at thecondocoaches.com or 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415. We'll be right back.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
Life is full of bittersweet transitions. It's difficult to know how these changes will impact us over time. For some people, difficult transitions like retirement, divorce, or loss of a loved one can hit harder than expected and may contribute to feelings of hopelessness or even thoughts of suicide. The risk of suicide is even higher for men over 50 who served our country. Guys like me. That's why support from friends and family makes such a big difference. Every day, your actions could help save a life. Together, we got this. Learn how you can help save a life. At veteranscrisisline.net.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Again, if you want to be a part of the show, we are talking Hurricane Irma. We'll be discussing not only hurricane preparation, but we'll also be discussing the aftermath. And, you hate to have to face that reality, but it is going to be a reality for us, whether it hits us directly. And again, this show's carried all across the state. So this applies to everybody who is listening to this show today, whether you're in South Florida, Central Florida, or even here in the Tampa Bay area. There are things that you are going to need to do immediately following the storm, regardless of the extent of damage in your community. And so we are talking about some of the things that you can do to start preparing and to start making sure that you are doing the right thing. Dean's over there playing on his phone, but it's what we were talking about. You obviously, Kristi. By the way, our guest coach today, Kristi Demers-Crowell, and you're an attorney in this space. When it comes to not only homeowners insurance but commercial insurance as well. And part of the reason, I know Dean reached out to you is because you were sharing all this great information online on social media, trying to educate people as to how to prepare for the aftermath of this storm. And you were telling us to document everything. Video is obviously key. If you have a phone that maybe isn't as advanced or doesn't have the storage and that sort of thing, pictures would work fine as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I represent building owners, and I have for almost 20 years. And during that span of time, there's been a lot of hurricanes that have hit the state of Florida. We've had a break for a while now, but we learned a lot of lessons from those hurricanes. And what I want to do today is share some tips for the condo boards that are listening and the unit owners and any other property owners that are listening today on what you can do now or just have in mind in the event power goes down, you don't have internet service, things that you need to be aware of ahead of time so you can get right on to reporting any insurance claims you have and tips to follow in doing that. So the first thing that we talked about was documenting your property, the interior and exterior of the building, and your contents.
Well, and you talked about a cool app that you've been using.
Hopefully it doesn't crash after all the bragging I've been doing about it.
Sure, but go ahead. What was the name again?
It's called Encircle, ENCIRCLE, and it simply allows you to organize your photographs by room, including exterior. So,
was it designed for this?
Yes.
Very
it's
cool.
Designed for to inventory your property.
Excellent.
And both from an exterior condition standpoint and also your contents. And it allows you to take individual photos of the contents themselves and then takes you to the internet to find the values for those contents.
Cool.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm using that right now, but it doesn't have to be that.
Sure.
Like you said, it can just be definitely take some photos, as many as you can, and videotape before you evacuate. So that's step one.
Because it's not only about the material things that are there, right, and the value of that, but it's also so people can see the state that your home was in at the time before the storm came.
Exactly. And we'll talk about that in a little while.
Yeah.
Some of the pitfalls that condo associations can avoid by keeping this in mind from the beginning.
Now, before we kind of start to go even further down that path, of course, we want to encourage preparation. Or if you are thinking of evacuating, definitely, I'd say within the next 24 hours, develop that plan because you'll need to execute it, I'd say, within the next 48 hours. But in terms of hurricane prep, of course, we're seeing folks, and again, I believe that a lot of this reaction has been to what we've seen out in Houston and the greater Houston area, which is people are out there getting their water, getting their gas tanks filled, getting the non-perishable foods and those sort of things. And so what are some of the things that they should be doing at home also when it comes to securing maybe things around the house? Like, to what extent? I mean, you see, we had somebody on from the National Weather Service recently where she said that putting tape on the windows isn't like a practice anymore. They don't recommend it. Doesn't really accomplish anything. What are some things that people can do to be proactive for their property at home?
Getting anything that would be a projectile, obviously, putting it inside. If you have propane tanks and things of that nature that you might not be able to move inside, you need to try and somehow get them secured so they won't become a flying object and flying debris.
Sure.
I saw people today actually trimming trees. They're tree people. I'm sure they're very, very busy over the next few days trying to trim trees, because that's one of the things that causes a lot of havoc in a storm like this is flying branches and trees falling on buildings.
Well, and even palm trees. I mean, we talked to somebody recently who sent us an email about even just a palm frond that fell on somebody's car and broke the windshield, something you don't typically conceive of as being heavy. But those palm fronds are really heavy. And if you've seen some that aren't looking too good, they're dried out, they look like maybe they're already on their way down, those might be, right now is probably the best time to get those off the tree.
Yeah, indeed.
But to Kristi's point, the first things is get inventories and stuff. The odds of you getting a tree trimmer out right now and calling him, he better be your uncle,
Right. Exactly.
Well, you do what you can, though.
There are a lot of tips out there, though, on social media right now, and some of them that I've seen, people are panicking about getting water. But a lot of us, because the stores all over the state of Florida are just barren shelves, no water left. But a lot of us recycle. I mean, in St. Petersburg, where I live, we have, recycling offered by the city, and we've got all of these empty bottles. Yeah. So let's fill them up now and fill up your tubs so that you can use that if you are able to shelter in place. If we're lucky enough to not have to evacuate, we can take these measures to make ourselves a little bit more comfortable because we are likely to face power outages.
Well, we're seeing about bagging ice, so empty out your ice maker, bag it up into a gallon bag, a Ziploc bag or something, throw those bags of ice into your freezer. That's another way to store not only water, but also store ice itself, which could come in handy. And like you said, find coolers, find bottles, find, different resources. Another thing I want to recommend too is the Nextdoor app, which is a fantastic way to get in touch with the people that are within your vicinity. I don't know I think it's probably like a 2 or 3 mile range that it reaches the communities in your surrounding area. But if you are someone who cannot go out and tree trim for yourself, if you are someone that needs transportation to go get some supplies, that sort of thing, I can assure you that if you put out a request on there, someone will make themselves available to help you out. Again, whether it's trimming a tree, maybe it's just getting a ride to the grocery store or a convenience store, those kind of things. It's all about leveraging social media, as we've seen in Houston, to put yourself in the best situation to survive the storm.
Two tips that are kind of not insurance related. One is assuming we don't have a flood event like Houston, which we probably won't, where the water just covers your car, so your car will still start. I recommend buying an inverter. You can buy them at Discount Auto Parts, probably Target, and a bunch of places. It goes into your cigarette lighter. It gives you 2 110 outlets and USB outlets and stuff, so that if you had an emergency or whatever. Then I also bought 4 2-time chargers. So I have a total, without my inverter, I can charge my iPhone 8 full times. If I'm without electricity and I need communication, we know how quick these things go down. So if you don't have backup there and all of a sudden people are going to freak out crippled if they don't have their communication devices.
Well, and we've seen it save lives. I mean, we saw the nursing home in Houston that was flooded. The patients, the residents there were waist deep in water. And if it hadn't been for someone with a cell phone that was able to get pictures out and give their location, the rescuers may not even have checked that building for some time. And those are people that, again, need medical care as soon as possible. But to your point on to the electronic devices, is also that if you do have these external batteries that will recharge your phone, the trick is the following, and I've done this because I go to day-long events, being racing or concerts or that sort of thing, where what you want to do is get a full charge on your phone, get a full charge on your external battery, and right away just plug them in together. Because what will happen is that your phone won't lose charge and your external battery won't lose charge. And so they'll both last you much longer if you have them connected right out of the gate than if you wait until your phone dies and then you have to charge it all the way back up. Mm-hmm. So that's just a little personal tip that I've used that's been helpful. And I've been able to make my external battery last a day and a half, 2 days, because, again, it's not pulling all that juice out of its own battery. It's also kind of relying on that external battery.
Well, with the inverter, I've also been able to use my laptops, and I've even run extension cords in the past where I could run a fan and my car's running. And again, you've got to top your gasoline off. There's a bunch of stuff. I just hope none of this matters.
No, you're absolutely right. But again, I think if anyone is well prepared to handle this storm, it's the state of Florida. We've been through this. We kind of know the routine. Again, most Floridians, until, it got over a Category 3, that's when they started paying attention, because we know to what extent you have to prepare. I know in South Florida, they're already boarding up. They're putting up shutters and the likes. Kristi, we talked a little bit about doing inventory on the home. We're about to go into the next segment here in just a bit.
And that applies for businesses and condominium associations
perfect.
as well.
Yeah.
I mean, just in terms of making sure that the condition of those commercial buildings is documented with photographs, and also common area furniture and other contents that belong to the condo association. And you should encourage your unit owners to do the same thing.
Well, and we'll get into this into the next segment, but we're also talking amenities and everything, right? I mean,
yes.
Okay. All
yes,
right.
as much as you can.
We're talking Hurricane Irma, both not only preparation, but also the aftermath. And so we appreciate you for listening to and watching the Condo Coaches. For more information, visit thecondocoaches.com or give us a call, 813-331-5415.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
With everything you've done to lift up those around you during your military career, we're not going to let your money concerns get you down. We're the NFCC, and we've got your back on this one. As your financial advocate, we're dedicated to improving the financial health of all members of the military community. Whether your debt issues are related to student loans or housing, or involve credit cards, our goal is to help you to defend your financial future. NFCC certified credit counselors have already made the difference for thousands of military members and their families. Let us make a difference for you and yours. Schedule a confidential financial review with an objective nonprofit NFCC financial counselor. Call us today at 877-404-6322. That's 877-404-6322. Or visit us at nfcc.org/military. You owe it to yourself. Get relief now.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Thank you again for listening. The Condo Coaches radio show, special Hurricane Irma edition. For those in Central Florida, South Florida, for those of you who listen to the terrestrial broadcast of the show through one of our great radio stations across the state of Florida, you may or may not get this basically leading up to Irma, because some of them may go wall-to-wall coverage on Irma as it makes landfall. Some are saying it's going to be around Sunday. So our show airs Saturdays and Sundays across the state of Florida. So, I mean, we hope, right? We're doing this show because we want to get this information out to people. We want to educate them on what their expectations should be. We haven't had a storm of this magnitude in a long time, but I think, unfortunately, watching what's happening, just to the west of us over in Texas, is a precursor, to adequately prepare us mentally and logistically to deal with a hurricane like Irma. All you can do is hope for the best, and for some of you that may be through prayer, for some of that may be through other means, but right behind Irma is Jose. And so whether it's for Irma or Jose or any other storm that comes down, these are things that apply just long term. These are just good tips and information that we're going to be sharing today. Joining us today is Kristi Demers-Crowell, who is an attorney in the homeowner association and commercial business insurance space. Thank you so much for being here. You've also been sharing incredible information on social media. Again, I would say, at least in the Tampa Bay area, I'm certainly seeing it from my friends down in South Florida. People are very much taking this seriously. They're either skipping town altogether, or they're doing the right things to get themselves prepared by boarding up, buying supplies, and fueling up their cars. We talked about making sure that you're documenting the status of your home and your building and your amenities and that sort of thing. If you're seeing people also maybe like dump the furniture into the pool, we're seeing that, which again, if you've got pool furniture, that's not a bad approach either, because again, it keeps it submerged, keeps it from becoming a projectile. Are there other kind of practices like that may be good, or is it pretty much just sticking it into a building and just hoping that that stuff doesn't get blown out?
Well, I think we all need to just not operate in a vacuum, and we need to pay attention to the resources that we can get online for the time being, at least while we have power, through FEMA, through ready.gov. There's some very detailed checklists on there. The Red Cross has some really good checklists too that will allow you to stay very focused on how to prepare for the storm, both in terms of getting food and supplies to stick the storm out, in terms of protecting your property, whatever you can do now without panicking about, not having hurricane windows. I mean, you're not going to get that done this week, but what can we do to make it as safe as possible? And then also paying attention to the timelines they give you, because there are some good timelines on ready.gov about the hours, how many hours till the hurricane hits. During this time frame, you should be evacuating, or you can wait until this time frame. And so keep an eye on ready.gov for that type of information. Yeah. If there are local resources for you, Alert St. Pete in Pinellas County, where I live, happens to be one service that I registered for, because they're going to be contacting residents both through landlines and cell phones and other means to let us know, if the tornadoes are coming in as part of this storm. We'll get alerts and alarms on our phone to let us know when immediately severe weather is happening right in our area. So pay attention to your local resources, because that's going to be your first line of defense in sticking out the storm. Yeah. You may decide to stay, and then you may realize that the wind is too strong for you to remain in your home. Sure. Or you may see the floodwater rising and you need to get out before it gets too deep. And you need to know where your local shelter is, because that's going to be the kind of building that can withstand a storm like this. And so, even if the roads are crowded and you can't get north, or you're, getting gas to be able to stay on the road that long is an issue, you always have the ability to go to a local shelter that is going to be a strong building that your home might not have the construction that building does.
Well, and you got a little ahead of me, because I was thinking I was thinking along those lines, which is, if you have any problem in regards to transportation, then the best option for you may be to go to a shelter and get a ride to that shelter right away. Because the last thing you want to do is not only be somewhere where it's flooded and people can't get to you, but you also not have an option as to how to get out of that particular location.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things I've done in several other preparations, and I'll do it this time because I live on the water, is I'll take my vehicles, once I've decided I'm going to stay, I'll take my vehicles to a city garage or something and put it on the second or third floor of a concrete bunker garage in the middle. Yeah. And then I get, in this case, Uber, cab, a friend, or whatever to drop me back at my house. Now, I won't have my vehicle. That's a
great idea. I hadn't heard that one before.
Yeah, I won't have my vehicle, but if I get flooded, my vehicle's going to be irrelevant anyway. So
that's one thing we've seen. We've been getting a lot of calls from people in Texas from Hurricane Harvey. Right. Is a lot of people do not have comprehensive coverage on their automobiles, and you've got to have comprehensive coverage if you're going to have coverage for this kind of property damage and having your car flooded out.
Now, even with something, and I know that's slightly outside of your wheelhouse, but when we're talking about auto insurance, is it too late, to call your auto insurance company and say, hey, can I go ahead and get this added onto my to my policy?
No, you should call, and whether they'll be able to bind you or not, I don't know the answer to that, but it's never too late. And in fact, I was lucky enough to bind flood insurance on my home this morning. It cut off at 1 p.m., but I was able to bind coverage with Lloyd's of London with only a 3-day waiting period. There was a special program that Tower Hill was offering where we could bind coverage, private flood coverage on your home. And I was lucky enough to get in. So that's just an example of, it's never too late. You can always call to see if you can get coverage. And on a vehicle, it's going to be a little bit different than on a physical building because, with property insurance for buildings, once there's a storm in the box, you're not going to generally be able to get coverage. And that's what their lingo they use is when the storm is in the box, is when it's in a certain vicinity. Obviously, insurance companies, the risk is they're buying a risk of, they're going to have to pay out. So, and that's not really why insurance companies are in business. They're generally in business to collect the premiums and hopefully not have to pay out. Right. But we can talk a little bit more about if you do have to make an insurance claim on your building, the steps that you need to take to try and ensure you get proper payment that you're owed under your policy too.
Okay. Well, just before we get into that, and obviously we don't typically focus on businesses and that sort of thing, but I'm sure we have a lot of business owners who listen to this program. If you are a business owner, other than documenting, maybe you have commercial vehicles and that sort of thing, what are some things that they need to do as well, just to make sure that their insurance process is going to be smoother in the aftermath?
It's a similar process as to, people's homes.
Yeah.
But now you've got computers, you might want to bag those computers up, do whatever you can to waterproof that type of equipment in your office. Having things in the cloud in case, a server gets wiped out.
So back up all your files.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And, again, this is connected to a building insurance coverage. But, and if you don't have it now, it's something to look forward to in the future. But business interruption coverage is really critical in saving businesses from just collapsing after a catastrophe like this, because a lot of businesses don't come back. And we've seen that in prior storms unless they have that kind of coverage in place.
I mean, less than a week after Harvey hit, I have friends who were getting emails or solicitations for people to buy businesses in Houston that knew that they just weren't going to be able to rebuild or recover from it. It's a horrible thing. And again, the impact goes far beyond a car or a house, right? It's now impacting jobs that you can't go back to, businesses that will never come back. And so the aftermath is far more devastating, I think, than what we even get a whole grasp of, through the media coverage. So let's go ahead down that road. Hopefully everyone's safe. Hopefully everybody made it out fine. And again, you don't want to minimize the fact that in many cases these are material objects. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of my friends promote the fact that, hey, grab your heirlooms, grab, maybe a few things that are very important to you. Everything else, just, let it go. Don't worry about it. Once the storm is past, and again, the recovery efforts begin. Of course, these insurance companies start to get flooded with people wanting to file claims and that sort of thing. What's the first step?
You need to report your claim as soon as possible, because you want to get as far in the, or up in that line as possible, because it's going to be a first come, first serve basis. Okay. So report your claim in writing if it's possible. It may not be possible, but if you can report that claim with an email or a fax, that's going to report it directly to your insurance company, not just to your agent. We saw a lot of claims after Charlie and Francis and Jean and Wilma, where people thought they had reported a claim and said they contacted their agent to report the claim, but then somehow in all of the chaos, the insurance company had no record of the claim being reported.
So not only directly to the insurance company, but also to your agent as well.
Just to the insurance company.
Just the insurance company.
You can report it to your agent if you want to, but the message is that you need to report it directly to your insurance company.
Yeah, I mean, the agent's not going to be the one paying you out. It's going to be the insurance company. And so you just go right to whoever your insurer is and make sure that you're filing that claim. Get copies of all that, right? Have them make sure that...
Preferably do it in writing. Like I said, this may not be possible because your priority is to get the claim in as soon as possible.
But by writing, you mean electronic as well.
Yes, indeed. Right. But if that is not possible, then you can call your claim in. And in the hopefully with your condo association, you've got a plan in place for who's going to do that, or once it's safe enough to get back on site, you can develop that strategy of who is going to call this claim in, because that call into the insurance company is very important. They're going to be asking you a lot of questions, and you don't want to make any mistakes or speculate. And you also want to document the date of that call. That's very important. And so what I recommend doing, and this is what I would do if I had a claim, is if I can't do it in writing, then I would do it by phone. But I would put, when I call my claim in, whether it be commercial or personal, I would put the phone on speakerphone, and I would videotape that call if I can.
Okay.
Get another person to videotape the call if you're on your cell phone. Tell the call center that you're doing this. You want to have their, permission to record the call, but just let them know that, listen, I would like to record this as they record you, because they say on there, recorded for quality assurance. You'd like to do the same thing.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about the aftermath of dealing with the hurricane. We got Kristi Demers-Crowell, head coach, Dean Akers. It's the Condo Coaches radio show. Right back after this.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
Thanks, Julie. And coming up next, is there rain in your weekend forecast? We'll find...
Hey.
Hi.
It's been a while. Great place and nice neighborhood. You must have a strong community association board.
Thanks. I guess so, but I don't pay any attention to that stuff.
Seriously? How do you know for sure the board and community manager are making the right decisions to protect your investment?
I don't, but what am I supposed to do?
You can get involved and connect with CAI.
CA what?
CAI, Community Associations Institute, they're a nonprofit group that has helped us build a great community. They have free resources for your association board, professional training for community managers, and helpful information for homeowners.
Thanks. I'll definitely do that.
Is the time and investment you have made in your home and community protected? Be a smart homeowner and visit CAI at responsiblecommunities.com.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Thank you again for listening, watching the Condo Coaches. You can find our show anywhere and everywhere online at facebook.com/the Condo Coaches. Search for every episode on our YouTube channel as well. Just go to youtube.com, search the Condo Coaches. And you can also listen to the podcast, which, again, if you're going to be killing a few days at home and need some entertainment, what's better than going through the library of previous Condo Coach episodes, which you can do on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, all of those great podcasting platforms, or just go to our website, thecondocoaches.com. That's thecondocoaches.com. Special edition today, we're talking Hurricane Irma and hurricanes in general, really. And so we brought in the best person that we could find to talk on this issue. She's working right now with some of the victims affected by Hurricane Harvey out in Texas, and we're fortunate to have her here in the Tampa Bay community, and of course sharing our knowledge and expertise across the state of Florida on the great radio stations that carry our show. But it's Kristi Demers-Crowell. You're an insurance attorney, and Dean here. Dean's phone is going off the hook with people.
Yeah.
Just wanting to know what they need to do to get through this hurricane.
We have a lot of people that are texting me that they're streaming this live.
Yep.
And we recommend you, they're not going to know now, but the streaming live, share this, get this out. This is information that is important today, not Saturday and Sunday.
Well, and Christie's fantastic on social media. Dean's also great about being on social media. We're going to be monitoring this episode for the next week. And so if you have follow-up questions based on what you hear today, just ask them right there in the comments section, and we'll answer them in a timely manner. Of course, we hope that we come off unscathed and that everyone makes it out of here safely with all of their belongings and their property. But unfortunately, right now, it looks like no matter what part of the state of Florida you live in, you are going to be affected by Hurricane Irma. We don't even want to talk about what's even coming behind Irma, but that may be something to keep an eye on as well. We are now getting into the aftermath, and what are the to-dos in the aftermath? You talked about documenting the filing of your claim, be that through an email, be that through a letter, right? Maybe it's a letter or a fax, making sure that you have copies of when you filed your claim and what you actually filed with your insurance company. They shouldn't really even bother to go through their insurance agent in this situation, right?
No, if you just were to leave it with your agent, there might be a miscommunication, and you could end up not having your claim filed with your insurance company. Like I said, this is the situation that we ran into repeatedly in handling claims after 2004 and 2005 with Charlie and Francis and Jean and Ivan.
Well, and oftentimes your agent is your neighbor, right? It's somebody you know. It's somebody that lives nearby, right? You typically, will do your insurance shopping with someone that's in the neighborhood, and so that person is also dealing with their own recovery efforts after a storm like this. And so we don't know the extent of the damage of their office, and obviously what logistical issues they're having, because again, so that may be the disconnect between making sure that whether or not your claim gets filed or not.
Yeah. I mean, the important thing is, like I said, try to do it in writing if possible, because that's where you can receive a written confirmation. So not mailing a letter. Obviously, we'd want to do a fax or an email, but that's not always possible with power outages after a storm. And we were talking before about calling in the claim and videotaping that call and what you need to do when you make that call.
And there are apps too that'll record. They'll actually record your conversation. And but again, you said to make sure that you disclose that you are recording and documenting that conversation with the insurance company.
Indeed. And get the claim rep to acknowledge the date that you're calling in the claim. So get them to acknowledge so you have a record of how quickly you made your claim. Okay, that's going to be very important, because that's an obligation that every policyholder has under your policy, is to promptly report the loss.
Yeah.
And there's something else you need to ask your claim rep about while you're on the phone for that first call. You need, one of the other duties you have under your policy is to mitigate your damages. And of course, you want to mitigate your damages. And what that means is to keep things from getting worse. So you want to stop any further water intrusion, assuming you're lucky enough you still got your building standing there.
Yeah.
You want to try and protect that property from further damage.
And what are some of the ways they can do that?
Well, first, before you start doing it, it's real important to talk to your insurance company, because you've got a balance between protecting the property from further damage and also preserving the evidence of your claim and what your damages are. Some of the things that you might do to protect property from further damage is ripping out sopping wet carpet so it doesn't mold and make it a toxic mold situation.
Right.
But before you throw that evidence away, it's good on your initial call to talk with your claim rep when you're reporting the claim about what their instructions are to you in that regard. So say, do I have permission to throw out wet carpet? Do I have permission to throw out wet contents? Get them to say during that recorded call exactly what their expectations of you are, so they can't come back later, which we've seen happen, and accuse you of destroying the evidence. And now the insurance company says, well, we can't assess your claim, and that's not our fault. You destroyed the evidence.
I would think, especially if they're items of value, right? Be they electronics or appliances, or, I mean, I'm watching a lot of the footage from Houston where we are seeing in people's driveways, it's almost the entire home has been gutted and put out on the sidewalk because it's all damaged.
As well as building materials themselves too. So establish that with your claim rep on the phone. And then even then, if they give you permission to dispose of some of these things, and the reason for disposing of them at all is simply to protect the property from further damage and mold and making it a toxic situation that actually increases the damages. You have to do a lot more mold remediation if you leave everything sopping wet in there. So once you get their permission on the phone, you still want to document everything with photographs.
So in the aftermath, do you want to photograph everything all over again?
Okay. All over again. Absolutely.
Got it.
Now, there's another tip I really want the condo associations to hear, and it pertains to this, documenting damages. One thing we ran into a lot after 2004 and 2005 and the storms with commercial buildings, and particularly the tile roofs, the insurance companies would say, this damage up here on these tile roofs, that's not from the storm or from flying debris. That's from the people who got up here to tarp the roof, walking around on the roof.
Right.
So you're going to want to do that. You're going to want to, right after the storm, get someone that is trustworthy. There's going to be a lot of predatory contractors out there. So hopefully you have some resources. You can call the Condo Coaches and get referrals. But you're going to want to make sure you take a photograph and have those contractors take a picture before they ever set foot on the roof of the condition of that roof.
Well, this may be an opportunity for a lot of our drone enthusiasts to kind of put their little toys to work,
Indeed,
But if you know someone with a drone, and maybe, again, this is a suggestion for maybe those who do own drones, you could do this as a service or, as something to do for your fellow neighbors, is to actually go out there and photograph the people's homes from an aerial perspective, exactly for that type of damage.
Yes, that would be excellent job of documenting the way things were, and that'll shut down any defense by the insurance company that this wasn't flying debris.
Yeah.
It was your efforts to try and protect the property that actually caused the damage.
I think the thing I got from Kristi in our lunch visit is document, and when in doubt, document,
Sure.
and when in doubt, document.
That's absolutely right. because at the end of the day, I mean, especially now with these digital devices, it's just space. It's just memory stuff. So once this is blown over and you've gotten it all resolved, you can go ahead and delete it, or you can move all those files into a folder for safekeeping, for future reference, which might you also recommend? Is that something also that you might recommend people do?
Yes. Typically, after your insurance claim is concluded, when you go to purchase insurance in the future, that's frequently a question on applications. Have you ever had any type of a loss? You might not have even had to file a claim on it, and they're asking you about any prior loss to the property. So if you have had a claim, they typically want to know, the carriers, the underwriting departments, they want to know how much you got paid on it and what the claim was all about. So I would recommend keeping a file even after the fact.
Now, what typically happens between not only the insurance company, but also the community or the individual that's insured? I mean, is that point the insurance company saying, okay, well, we've paid you out, you got the money that you were owed. Are they typically drops from coverage and then they have to go and find a new insurer, or do they typically, or is it likely that they might maintain that relationship? It
varies per insurance company. I mean, they do take into consideration as part of underwriting analysis how many claim frequency. But they also inspect properties, and they're going to expect you, once a claim has been paid, to make those repairs, and they'll come out and inspect the property to ensure that has occurred. We're skipping a piece, though, when we're talking about them just paying out the claim. Okay. Because unfortunately, it doesn't always go that smoothly with insurance claims.
Yeah. Well, we got a minute left.
Okay, great.
Go ahead.
Perfect. Well, one thing you need to make sure of is that, like I said, you want to avoid predatory contractors, but also you want to hire a contractor that knows how to write an insurance estimate.
Okay.
Don't rush to hire a building contractor that's going to rebuild your building.
Yeah.
Those folks don't always know how to write an insurance estimate. It might need to separate flood damages from wind damage and be put in a form that your insurance adjuster is going to understand and be able to pay you out. So contact the Condo Coaches for a referral to a really good storm and flood estimator if you get hit.
Yeah, because again, I mean, and they may be a good contractor, but they just may not have that experience with insurance estimation.
Worry about rebuilding later. Your priority after the storm is to get what you're owed on your insurance claim, and then figure out, once you get that money, what you got to work with.
Okay, well, if you do have any more questions, please reach out to us at thecondocoaches.com or 813-331-5415. So long. Thank you.
You've been listening to The Condo Coaches, brought to you by lmfunding.com. Find us online at thecondocoaches.com and join us this same time next week as we help you navigate life in your managed community.